Okay, so we're going to try this again. We have the guest. So apparently, let me just start over. My name is Latanya Thompson, and I am the Purpose Authority Coach. So I help people who have experienced personal or professional trauma do the inner work, document their process, and rewrite their story. And so on tonight, we're going to talk about exposing the knee that is on your neck by telling your story. And so a little history about the topic. Originally, when I started talking about identifying the knee in your neck. And as I started to talk about it, I began to expose the different needs we had in our neck. If you're wondering where the topic came from, it came from a place of being frustrated, fed up, and upset about what was currently going on in the world. This was during the time when George Floyd had actually had an officer put his knee in his neck while people stood around and began to videotape, and the video went viral. I began to ask the question, what can we do? And when I began to ask the question, what could we do? I was talking to the world and I was waiting for the world to respond as a group. What would we do to make a change? The problem when you ask the question, we, it means that other people are involved and that you're waiting for everyone to get on the same plate, on the same page, and for us to come to agreement and to do something. I then began to change the question from we to I. And when I began to ask, what can I do? I began to look at what I could do with what I had. At that time, I began to say, what can I do? Okay, do you see the things at the bottom, Nisi? I'm not sure what's going on with Periscope tonight. Okay, perfect. Okay. So we got it. Let me finish this part. So as I began to ask what could I do, I began to identify the different needs in our neck that was not always visible. So at one of the topics that we have went deep with is domestic violence. And recently I dropped the word domestic violence and just began to deal with the different forms of it. Domestic violence talks about where it's actually taking place. And many people may have assumed that they're not in a domestic violence relationship because it's not taking place in their home. And they ignore the other forms of it, such as emotional, verbal, physical, mental, financial, and sexual. And when you think about this, you need to think about your relationships, your friendships. You need to also think about your workplace and any relationship that may not be healthy for whatever reason. And so as I began to go deeper with identifying, and we began to identify different types of needs that was in our neck, I then say it's time for us to begin to expose because people have already identified it, have went through their healing process, and now it's time to expose the need that was in their neck, to begin to educate and to empower others who may have a need in their neck. And so on tonight, I am excited as we do something a little bit different, right? So this is going to be an interview slash share her story, her testimony. And one of the things I want us to do is I want us to begin to post our questions in the comment section. And the reason why is it's easy to judge somebody when you don't know what they're going through. And so it's not always appropriate to ask someone when they're actually in the midst of an abusive relationship. And so the questions that you need answers to, but you don't know who to ask, we're going to invite you to ask those questions here in a safe place. And we want you to begin to be open from a place of not being judgmental, right? And to understand that when a person leaves a relationship, it is not just leaving their husband or their boyfriend, it's their identity, it's their finance, it's their security. There's a lot of things that's tied to it. And a lot of times that they may be physically ready to leave, they may not be ready mentally or emotionally. One of the things I recently talked about was if you've ever been in a job and you've been corporate bullied, or you've been in an emotional, verbal, or mental relationship with a job that wasn't healthy, why did you stay? Right? Was it for the money? Was it for the position? Was it for the title? Was it for the financial stability? Was it for the benefits? Was it for the retirement? And the reason why I'm saying that is if you stayed in a job that wasn't healthy because it benefited you in whatever capacity, and you felt like people didn't understand, and you felt like you didn't have a choice, I now want you to begin to imagine someone who may not have a high school education, may not have a work history, may not even speak English, right? And all they know is their spouse has taken care of them. And without this spouse, they have nowhere to go, no place to turn to, no money, no education, no job. If we can't leave it with our resources, how much harder is it for someone who feels like they're trapped with no resources? And so at
Okay.
this time, we're going to start, and we have no other than Denisha Clemens on. And so on tonight, and it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be emotional conversation um, as you share your story. And so I kind of want to break it up so that we don't start right with your story because I feel like we need to kind of break it in so that people can handle it and understand it. And so I want to start with I want you to tell them who you are and what you do.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi everybody. I am so sorry. Um having trouble with the Periscope. My name is Denicia and everybody calls me Nisi. And a lot of times people say I am a survivor, but I'm a victor. And so who I am is a mother of three, a minister in the church, a owner of a nonprofit, House of Loving Hands, that assists abused women and their children in finding safety, i.e., hotels, hotel rooms, resources, food, clothes. And it took me almost 20 years to get where I am today. I was married for 7 years to a pastor. We moved to Arizona to get away. And a lot of times people feel like when you move, that yes, you are getting a fresh start. However, if you don't have a different mindset, then all you're doing is taking that same mindset and then moving to a new country or a new state. And nothing is going to change if the mindset doesn't change. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
Let's so we're going to talk about your story and before I let you go all the way into the story,
Okay.
what are some red flags that now looking back, you identify them as red flags, but when you were actually in the process of it, you may not have identified it as a red flag.
Um, some of the red flags were when you're having a regular conversation
Okay.
and in a mature conversation, if me and you do not agree, then we can just agree to disagree.
Yes.
However, if you're having a conversation with a narcissist and an abuser, they because they try to control every aspect of who you are, conversation is also controlled. So if they don't like what you hear, what they hear, um, when you guys are talking, it can become an argument, and you're just like, I just said the sky was blue. How did we get to where we are fist fighting? Because I
Mhm.
said the sky was blue, but you said it was. He said it was sky. The sky was blue with some hints of glitter. So if I don't agree with what you're saying, then there's a problem. So in my situation, it was if I didn't agree, then I was attacking, quote unquote, his manhood.
Mm.
If I didn't agree with what his ideal was, then I am this horrible wife that doesn't support her husband. However, I'm an individual. Yes, when we got married, the Bible told us to um, leave our mothers and our fathers, and we cleave to each other. But we cleave to each other in spirit. And in the way that we walk in our journey, we are still two different people. We are still two different people with different mindset, and we have different opinions. And it's okay for me to have a different opinion than you. That should not negate us having a sit down grown up conversation.
Right. You said something key. You said that you should have been able to have a conversation and be able to agree to disagree. Was it ever any time in the marriage that you just agreed, even though you disagreed, for the peace, for the sake of peace, and to avoid the argument?
Um, in the beginning, when I seen that's how it was,
Okay.
yes, yes, you tend not necessarily to agree, but you kind of back down in your argument. So it
Okay.
almost feels like they have won or that they have gotten their point across. However, you just don't want to deal with the BS.
Hmm.
So then you kind of dumb down on whatever the argument was or whatever your thoughts may have been.
Okay.
However, at the I would say to the middle to the end, I didn't care.
Okay.
Yeah, at the
Okay.
end, I didn't care. You didn't like it. You just didn't like it. If we getting ready to fight, let's roll out. Boom.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So as you look back, and I know that you said that you guys had moved away. Now looking back at the relationship, do you feel like that was a possible red flag that he was in the process of starting to isolate you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because we moved to Arizona. A majority of my family is in Texas and Baytown and California.
Okay.
So I was what 900 miles away from my family, and I really felt the isolation when we separated
Okay.
because I had no one to fall back on. And
Mm,
because my family didn't know that I was going through this, I was really isolated. So whenever the incident happened, nobody knew what was going on.
okay.
So I'm out in Arizona trying to reestablish my footing because I had nobody out there. So that, yes, that was a way of isolation.
Okay. Now, prior to moving to Arizona, how did he handle your relationship with family and friends? Like, were you allowed to spend time with them? Were you allowed to spend time with them without being with him? Or did it lead to an argument anytime you were with family members or friends or anyone outside of him?
Whenever I was with my mother, it
Okay.
was okay. If I was with any friends or family, siblings, it was going to be an argument because when, like, say, if my sister came and got me or my mom came and got me and the kids, then it was always, why you got that lipstick on? Why you dressed like that? Are you and your sister going to go out hoeing?
Okay.
Are you guys going to go out looking for men? Mind you, I'm just going to my mom's house just to get some peace of mind.
Mm. Was there any friends involved, or it was just typically your family, so your mother and your sisters, or did you have girlfriends that was also part of your life at this time?
I had my girlfriends were a part of my life, just like my immediate family was.
Okay.
However, no one knew what was going on. They had an idea of what was going on. However, they didn't know that it was as bad as it was.
Okay. And I'm going to go back just a little bit more, right? And the reason why is because I was in a domestic violence relationship. And when mine started off, it started off like this fairy tale relationship where everything was perfect. And the red flags was he always wanted to be with me. He always wanted to know where I was. And he always wanted to be together. And so I thought
Mhm.
it was cute that he was picking me up and dropping me off from work. I thought it was cute that we were hanging out, right? I thought it was
Right.
cute that we were always together. And I didn't know that he was beginning to isolate me from family and friends. And so those were the red flags that I ignored because
Mm,
at the time I didn't know that they were red flags and I didn't know the direction in where the relationship was headed. And I enjoyed the attention at the beginning of the relationship. And at some point, it did become unhealthy, but by this time, it was too late. So, with the
Right.
relationship that you had with your husband, was it ever like a fairy tale relationship where everything was perfect and it was an ideal relationship?
No, everything was not perfect.
Okay.
Um, I did ignore the signs of the obsession.
Okay.
And I think we as women, we do like to be doted on.
Hmm.
So if they are, asking, babe, where are you? Where you going? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh my God, he's so jealous, or, he don't want nobody else, to have what he got, because he knows, it's a good thing.
Right.
Um, However, you, like you stated, you don't really know that you're in this unhealthy, uh, somewhat abusive relationship until you're in the middle of it. And this is something that I actually deal with in today's time. And I
Okay.
ask God to help me, because I don't care if you female or male. If
Okay.
you ask me, hey Nisi, where you at? I'm like, why? You don't want me to, and my whole thing in a relationship, it's like, why you don't want me to run into you while you doing your dirt? It's just,
Mhm.
you know, I took it almost from one extreme to the other, where in the beginning it was cute, ha ha ha. Now I'm very defensive about it. No,
Okay.
I didn't grow up seeing my mom in a domestic violence relationship. However, that um is very weird, because I never saw my mom get into a fight um
Okay.
with any of her boyfriends, any of her husbands. I never seen her get into a fight. However, like my stepfather never hit my mom, but he would
Okay.
always wait until she left to fight me. So I've always wondered, what was there something over my life that drew that? Because I literally left from the frying pan and jumped into the fire, because I didn't want to deal with my stepfather anymore. I ended up getting married early to whom I thought I wanted to be in a relationship with, and it ended up being worse than what I left.
Mm, that's interesting because your stepfather was the one who first started to abuse you. Did your
Yes,
husband know of the relationship that you had with your stepfather?
yes, yes, he did.
Okay. You provided him that information?
I did, which
Okay.
was a little hurtful for me to take that information and tell you, and then you turn around and do the same thing.
I
And
get.
just like the question, my stepfather, like I stated, he would wait until my mom left
Mm-hmm.
in order to pick a fight. However, it was physical. It was very much physical,
Okay.
but it was borderline also trying to be sexual, because when my mom would leave, um, me and my sister, we lived like the way the house was. It was like a whole in-law downstairs.
Okay.
So me and my sister stayed in the in-law downstairs, and I literally would have to lock the door and put a chair under there, because if I didn't, while I'm in the shower, all of a sudden he has a question to ask me. You don't have to come into the bath into my shower when I'm taking a bath to ask me a question. That's something that can wait until I get out and get dressed and then come upstairs where you reside. So, yes, it was very physical, and I think it's because he wanted it to be more
Trying to intimidate you. How was your
into.
relationship with your mom?
Whew, it was strange. It was
Okay.
strange. Um, I've had for the longest time, I had the feeling like I didn't belong in the family.
Okay.
That I was the black sheep. That she loved my sister more.
Okay.
Um, but once again, this is me as a teenager growing
Right.
up. Um, and then not really feeling protected. And I think I didn't feel protected because she didn't know.
Yeah.
My mom didn't know, because everything happened when she left. And it wasn't until one time that we were fighting, and it ended up outside. And my mom and my aunt drove up watching her husband fight me. And that was the first time that she ever knew that he was fighting me. The one time he hit me so hard in my jaw, the doctor said if he would have hit me any harder, he would have broke it.
Ooh. And as you sit here and tell the story, my heart goes
My
out to
mom, my mom never dealt with any physical abuse, any sexual abuse. It was almost like it started with me. Like how you can trace back to your grandmother, your great grandmother, and she may have dealt with Uncle Tom and, all the, kind of like just down through the history. We don't have the history of like molestation. We don't have the history of like incest. We don't have the history of like physical abuse. It's like it started with me for some reason.
and it's almost like, and so it wasn't, though it happened in the family, it was not within the family. Like this wasn't a cousin, an uncle, this wasn't a grandfather. This was a outsider who was in a relationship with a family member. And what I think took place is that um, him being a man, he probably took your mom's energy, her frustration with being a single parent, her being tired, your relationship, and he tried to manipulate it to build a relationship with you. And so,
Mm,
and that was the reason why I asked, like, what your relationship was with your mom. No,
mhm,
she's not responsible for what took place, but I was curious about the relationship because typically when someone molests, whether it's in or outside the family, it's like anyone who breaks the law. They look
mhm.
for the easiest way to do it, and they look for a way to do it and not get caught.
Right,
And so it amazes me how there could be a family, and out of the family, one or more people may get molested, but not everybody,
right,
right?
mm,
And so
right.
it's almost like and the reason why it's also interesting is if he felt like you needed a father, or if he knew that you needed to be loved based
Mhm.
off like your interaction with your mom and what you were looking for. And so,
I think he sorry to interrupt. I
no, go
think
ahead.
he I think because he's an abuser,
Okay.
he was older, because what we found out is that he abused his first wife but never hit my mom.
Okay.
And I think because he was a manipulator and
Mm,
he knew all of the traits, his whole thing was to isolate and to make it happen that like abusers do, even with molestation, um, they try to isolate and make it seem like you're the bad person. So when something does go down, people are not going to believe you. Because one of the things he did, and it kind of like just trickled throughout my life, is
okay.
at the age of 14,
Hmm.
I believe it was 14, and no, 16, no,
Okay.
14. And my dad, I used to always go visit my dad. He lived in Los Angeles, and I would go visit
Okay.
him in the summers and on the holidays. Well, my stepfather didn't like that. So every
Mm,
time I would go visit my father, he would pick a fight with my father to the point, and this is what kind of had a dual dynamic in my life, is my dad got tired of arguing with my stepfather and told me at 14, I'm not doing this anymore with your stepfather. I'm not going to continue to fight. So if you want me to be a part of your life, call me when you turn 18. So he was able to manipulate the situation so that I had nowhere to go. So if
mm.
something was to happen, who's going to believe me? I'm this wayward child, rebellious child. And so then that dynamic put a rift between me and my father. So what I started doing based on that is in friendships and relationships, because at 18 I reached out to my father for my father to continue to be a part of my life. Um in relationships and in friendships, I always was the one that did the olive branch.
Mm.
So
Okay.
I tend to go over and beyond. I'm a kind-hearted person anyway until you get me upset. However, I'm a kind-hearted person. So I'm always the one reaching out the olive branch. When New Year's Eve come, I'm the one calling Happy New Year's, Happy New Year's. And so what I ended up finding out is if I didn't reach out, sometimes people just didn't reach back. And I equated it back to um, my father.
Mm.
And that's
Okay.
how I kept him in my life. I kept my father in my life because I was the one that would call. I was the one that if I was going on vacation, Dad, we're coming your way. We're going to spend some time with you. Dad, happy birthday. You know, it
Okay.
was always me being the one to reach out so he can continue to be a part of my life. And yes,
Okay.
I did feel like my father abandoned me because in the most critical part of my life,
Yes.
I have a stepfather that's fighting me, that's trying to, in his slow but in manipulative way, try to get me sexually. My grandmother that I felt was my mother died. This is
Mm.
all the dynamic in one age. So now
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out who I am. Why am I here? And at 16 years old, I was working for the federal government and I had just got some work done on my mouth. So I had
Okay.
like all of this medicine. And that was the day that I said, I don't want to be here no more. There is
Okay.
no purpose. There is no purpose for my life. My own parents don't even want me, or it feels like they didn't want me. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I'm at my job, literally waited until my shift was over, went to
Okay.
the bathroom, and the three bottles, I think I had two or three bottles full, went to the bathroom and drunk and swallowed every last one of them. When I started on, thank you, Jesus. When I started on my way home, I started getting sick.
Okay.
And I think I had to take two buses at that time. I had to take the BART and then I had to take an actual bus. And
Okay.
so by the time I got on the train, I was like, yeah, not feeling so great. By the time I got on the bus, I started throwing up. When
Mm.
I got to the house, I went and I laid down because remember, I don't want to be here. So I was just going to let whatever medicine stayed in my system go on and take me home to glory. Just go on, do what you got to do, you know. And my stepfather was like, "What's the matter with you?" I was like, "Get the out of my room." You know, what do you want? You know, and so he actually ended up taking me to the hospital, and the doctor said the amount of medicine you took, you're not supposed to be here.
Jesus.
I had
Jesus.
over I had over 9,000 milligrams of medicine in my system. And he said, even though you do still have some residue, you throwing up, when you regurgitate it, you pulled a lot of it out. So it wasn't that
Mm.
much that they had to actually get out of my system.
Okay.
And I almost was angry that I didn't leave here.
Mm.
But then I knew even at a young age of 16 that if God didn't kill me and didn't allow that medicine, I should say, to take
You
me out
out.
of here, I have a purpose.
Mm. Nisi, what would be your advice? Um, and I'm gonna do a two-part question, but to the child that is currently being sexually,
Hmm.
mentally, verbally abused by a family member in the house, what advice would you give her? And again, let's keep in mind that this is probably somebody who doesn't feel love, doesn't
Hmm.
feel safe, doesn't feel heard, and believe that there's nowhere for them to go. And the weight of what it would have on somebody 13, 14, 15, 16, to go through this. And if they don't do something quick, or
Hmm.
it may have already taken place, that their first experience with sex will be with a family member that may be over 18.
Right. The only thing that I really can say, and I really push it, is we have to speak up. We have to speak up. And a lot of times, people or and children that are in those type of situations, they are in those families where they say what stays in the, what stays in the home, what goes on in the home stays in the
Mhm,
home. So a lot of times, some kids have teachers,
mhm.
they have different outlets. And if I was able to speak with them, I would let them know we got you.
Okay.
And you are not by yourself. I know that that's how it feels, but you're not by yourself.
Mhm.
And for them to speak to someone that they feel would keep them covered.
Okay.
So my biggest thing is we have to open up our mouth. Our silence is what kills us.
Mm.
My silence almost killed me because nobody knew what was going on. So we have to speak. It's not easy, it's scary, but it's something that has to be done.
And what about the young lady that is having something done, so whether it's molestation or it's progressed to actual sex?
Hmm.
Um, Now it is perhaps the embarrassment, the
Hmm.
guilt, the shame, the hurt, the resentment, is all of these feelings. How do you speak to that person and let her know it's not your fault, and that there's still purpose inside of you?
That's actually, it takes time. It's not something that you can tell her and she's just going to feel it and begin to walk in it. I'm about to be 50, and
Okay.
I'm still learning to walk in my truth. I'm still walking in not being embarrassed. What different parts of my life are embarrassing that I'm willing to share, and then some that I'm going to the grave with. Um, when you're speaking to that child just has to know that someone, only
Mm,
it only take one person to change that child's life and to walk her through it. A lot of times, therapy is taboo. We
okay.
need it. We
We do.
need it. I don't care if you 5. I don't care if you 7 and you seen something. We need it because a lot of times in domestic violence situations and family dynamics,
Hmm.
a lot of times we deal with the wife, we deal with the girlfriend, we deal with the adult, and we don't realize, and I didn't realize until I went through it myself, how it may damage the child even more than it damages you as an adult.
Mm,
And that it's okay for your children to go get help in therapy. My children had to go through therapy
okay.
because when my son seen the situation that ended the relationship, when I would drop him off to school, he was 4. He
Okay.
was 3 going on 4, and he would claw, he would kick, he would fight because he didn't want me to drop him off. He would
Mm,
always say, "The monster is going to kill you, and you're not coming back." And so what he did is he related the monster to his father. But because he loved his father, he couldn't say my father is going to hurt my mom. So he had to equate it as a child. What is bad in a child's mind? A monster.
mm, that's deep. Um, what would be your advice to a parent, um, on how to support the child? So we know about the counseling, but as a parent in the home, how do we now support a child that has already been exposed to some level to any form of abuse? as a mother, right? So that they don't feel guilty and that we're there to support them through the process, and making the process about them and not about us.
The first thing as a parent I learned I had to do is I had to be okay with number one, how they processed it.
Hmm.
And then I couldn't help my children if I stayed in embarrassment. Because if I
Okay.
stay in embarrassment, then I'm covering myself, I'm protecting myself, and then I'm not allowing them to be okay and deal with their process. Um, I didn't realize how embarrassed I was until my son was, when he was still about 3 or 4, and we were in Arizona still. And I had a good friend, and they would go with her while I went to work. And then out of the blue, because they really loved her, out of the blue, he said, my dad tried to kill my mom. And so then but that was his way of getting it off of him.
Hmm.
I mean, out of the blue, they laughing, they're talking, they're doing drill team, and out of the blue, that's what he says. And it kind of made everybody in the room gasp. And I was embarrassed. However, he needed that because
Right.
it was too much weight for a 3-year-old to deal with. And so when my girlfriend came and dropped them off, she was like, "Can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Yeah." So she told me what happened, and I was embarrassed because once again, I really not letting anybody know what was going on.
Do
And
you
so, uh-huh.
do you feel like your son may have saved your life by exposing the hidden truth?
I think
Um,
my I think my children saved my life.
okay.
Because what I had to do is I had to be okay and get me together, so I would be present to get them together and begin their journey of healing.
Okay. So, in your marriage, what are some of the forms of abuse that you dealt with? Was it only physical, or were there other forms of abuse that took place?
Hmm. Hello.
Yes.
Um, Physical,
Okay.
emotional, verbal,
Okay.
mental, sexual, and because he was a pastor, spiritual.
Mm, okay. What was your breaking point? What was the point where you said, "This is it"?
It's weird how it came upon me.
Okay.
Um, One day I was sitting there doing pros and cons. Like, what do I bring to this marriage? What do I bring to this family? What are my pros? What are my cons? I had some really good pros. I'm a good person, girl. Um, and then I did his pros and cons,
Okay.
and his cons totally outweighed any of the pros. So in my head, you know how they say once a woman leaves, she doesn't just abruptly leave. It's been some time. She's thought about it. She's, reminisced. She's, did the pros and the cons. She's done all of that before she actually says, "You know what? Enough is enough. I'm out of here," no matter what the situation is. So I was doing my pros and my cons. And my sister called me, and I was at work, and she said, "Nisa, I had a dream about you." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Yes, it was a life or death situation that you are were going to experience." And she was like, "I'm not telling you to leave your marriage. I'm not telling you to do any of that. I'm just telling you what I dreamt." And mind
Mm,
you, I already had been feeling like that. I already was going through that. Mental and different things. And so that night I was like, "Wow, God, give me direction, give me what to do," because the reason why I got married early is because I got pregnant. And so I
okay.
was in the church, and they feel like, once you get pregnant, you got to marry the person, so I'm trying to do everything by God. So I'm thinking spiritually, If I leave my husband, then I'm going to make God upset. God is going to be
Okay.
upset with me because he honors marriage. But I also had to think God don't want me in this mess either. He don't want me to be hurt, So then that night I kind of like just pondered it. And then that's when the beginning of my book started,
Okay.
where I told you it happened to me.
Mm.
And literally less than 24 hours, we got into a fight and he slit my throat. Yes. So that that was my breaking point. And the reason why he got so upset was um he kept trying to use scripture to manipulate me, to make me change my mind, to kind of twist it and warp it. And I was not having it. That night, I was just like, you know what? Somebody is probably going to die tonight, and it might be me. It might, but I'm not doing this anymore. So
Okay.
his whole thing was, if you if you want a divorce from me, then when I make it big, I want you to sign this paper that you don't ever want anything from me. So I took the pen and I put my name as big as the paper was. And it
Mm.
infuriated him because he knew this time there was no more coming back. There was not going to be a marriage. I'm out of here. And these babies is coming with me. And that's when he went and he got a knife. It was about a 9-inch ragged knife.
Mhm.
And he cut my throat. And at the time, I was working at a prison in the medical field. So I didn't go to an actual doctor. I didn't go to an actual doctor. I went to the prison where I worked. And
Okay.
the nurse actually cleaned me up. And he said, if the knife would have went, I believe he said 1/3 centimeter, it would have cut my jugular. So once again, I am here for a purpose.
And that is so obvious as we listen to your story, as we listen to how close you've come to death on multiple occasions, um, and how even your son at the early age of 3 was like, this monster is going to kill you, mom. And then he says in a room full of people, my dad is going to kill my mother. And then your sister says, hey, it's a life or death situation. And God is
Right,
just, and each time, like his hand is on you, like your
right,
relationship with him, even to the point where even as a young girl, his hand is on you, right? The fact
right,
that your stepfather was never able to overpower you, the fact that he was never willing to break down the door, the fact that he was never able to get your pants down, right? Or to
right,
penetrate you, right? The fact that there was a fight inside of you, that when nobody was going to fight for you, that you said, I'm going to fight for myself. Like the will of, I'm going to do something. Like I want out. Like it has to be something more to what I'm going through. And I
right.
think that's what makes you the person that you are today, is that fight. Because even when I think about you as a woman, as a business owner, it's the fight, right? It's the fight of going back and helping somebody because you know what it's like to be in a marriage or a relationship and no one's going to fight for you. I think it's
Right,
made you the person, and there's definitely a calling, assignment up on your life that God says it's not over. It's not over. Like, I don't care what you try to do, it's not over. You can take the pills, and technically you should have been gone. But God says, I'm gonna allow your system to reject it. It's gonna come up because you, and then the very person that was tied to you taking the medicine is the one that takes you to the doctor, right?
exactly,
The
exactly,
very person, right? And then the man that tries to, when you think about your throat, right, which is typically what they do to end someone's life, but it's the voice. Like here your husband is saying, I'm gonna stop your voice. I'm gonna take your sound, right? I'm gonna and it's like you can't. You can't.
Right.
You
Right. You
can't.
can't.
You
Right.
can't. You can't stop the assignment that's on my life.
Right. Right.
And it's funny that you started off and you said there's been no history of molestation or rape or anything in our family. There was nothing in our family until this man was brought into our family.
Wow. Yes.
But we have to ask if that's true.
Mhm.
Had it just never been exposed? And
True.
then you have to
True.
wonder, like, it's almost like, who are you? Right? And you know, people say
Mhm.
that all the time, like, who she thinks she is. Like,
Right.
I'm really like, God, who is she? Right? And I don't mean like you cocky or you rude, but I'm like, who are you, God, that you chose her for this assignment?
Right. Right.
Because not no one ever deserves to be molested, rape, ever. Under
Ever.
no such
Ever.
circumstances.
Right. Right.
But I know that there's people who probably would take their lives if it happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that from the place of I have an uncle who tried, right?
Right.
And I was to the point that I'm like, if he does, I'm taking my life. If I lose this fight, I'm taking my life. And he
Right.
didn't, like it never got to that level. But I told God, if I'm going to take my life
If it happened. Right.
because I couldn't emotionally, mentally handle it. Like it would have crushed me. And I think the part that was so difficult is because we grew up in a house and there was so much value placed on being a virgin and respecting your body, and that your first time should be with somebody you love and you should be 18. And so it was this, I had
Right.
placed this value on me being a virgin. And for
Right.
that value to be taken away meant like, well, that's what I'm living for. And so when I think about it, right?
Right.
Like though you tried to take your life, God didn't allow you to take your life because there was an assignment attached to your attack.
Right.
There was
Right.
assignment that was attached to your attack. And the assignment was something that only you could do. Like only you could say that I'm going to fight for these people. I'm not going to give up. It's not about me. Like I'm going to give my last. Like I don't care when you call me. Literally.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
Literally, like I know you, right? I know your business, right? So I know
Right.
I had to say, girl, if you don't cut you a check, girl, if you
Right.
don't go Christmas shopping for your own kids, like you don't went Christmas
Right.
shopping for everybody else, and you like Tanya, I gotta take care of these families. I gotta take care of these women who have never been loved and they don't have anything. I gotta take care of these kids who have been through hell and living out of a hotel room and don't know where their
Right.
next meal is gonna come from.
Right.
I gotta make one Christmas normal.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I think you're successful because of what you've went through, and you won't give up because you understand the depth of it. You
Yes.
understand the depth of what you're going through. It's for you, it's not about being an entrepreneur, it's not about being a nonprofit organization. It's about saving a woman, it's
Right.
about saving her kids and
Right.
allowing them to go through the process so that they can be restored and can live a normal or close to normal life.
Close to normal. Close. As close as possible.
Whew. Do you want to share any part of your story that's in that book? Because that book is
Um.
like, whew, that's
um.
it.
I'm,
Yeah, that
I
book.
can read. I'm going to read like the first just paragraph. I just want y'all to get just a little bit something, something.
So here's what I want you
Um.
guys to do once I grab my charger. I want you guys to close your eyes as she reads it. And when you read it, Nisi, I want you to read it slow so it can land. Because if it's a paragraph I think you're going to read, I want them
Mhm.
to visualize it and I want them to be with you in that moment.
Okay.
So if you
Let me
guys
know
can
when you're
close your
ready.
eyes,
Let me
right?
know when you're ready.
Whew. Let me have everybody take just a deep breath, right? Just really just, and then just slowly exhale because this is a heavy conversation. And it may have got us in our emotions because we've been molested. We know somebody that's molested, whether it's our immediate family, whether it's a friend of the family. Um, this is a heavy subject, even as a mother and as a child, to wonder, have I done all that I could to protect my child? And have I brought have I brought the predator into my home? Have I invited
Right.
someone into my home that has did damage to my child mentally, emotionally, physically, or sexually? Am
Right.
I the way that I am because of what was done to me? Right?
Right.
Am I attracting the man because my father has neglected me or rejected me or abandoned me? Or am I dealing with father issues? Right? And is this a generational curse that I'm dealing with? And so I kind of just want
Right.
you guys to like take a deep breath in and just slowly exhale. And as you exhale, I kind of want you to let go of the guilt, the shame, the story, the embarrassment, the feelings, the emotions, anything that doesn't serve you, right? And then I just want you to kind of breathe in like new life, new possibility, new beginning, hope, love, joy. And then I just want you to exhale and push out what's not of you, right? And if there's something that feels like it's stuck, I just want you to get in a position and I just want you to blow, like blow with force. It's something about blowing, like when you blow and you do it from your belly, it's like a force and it pushes stuff and it causes things to move. And so if there's anything that you want to move that you feel like has caused you to be stuck or held you back, when you blow, I want you to blow from a place of your movingness, and this will no longer hold you back. This will no longer stop you. This will no longer be an obstacle. And after you do that, I kind of just want you to sit and be fully present. Close your eyes as Nisi begins to read a paragraph from her book.
It happened to me. Here I am on my knees in the bushes in a park right around the corner from my house where the homeless men and women sleep. It's cold. I'm cold, cowered down on the wet dirt where ants, worms, and just too many bugs underneath me. The thorns from the bushes are sticking me and poking me in my face, my arms, legs.
Okay, so I'm not sure what happened. I'm hoping Nisi joins. Okay, Nisi, you're here. Join again so I can bring you on. We're about to start this all over again. Okay. Girl. Okay. Are you ready? We got to do it over again. I'm not sure what happened. Did you get cut off?
It
Mine just
just it just went dead.
okay. We getting ready. I was trying to give them a second for people to join.
Okay.
Girl, now you know we ain't never had this many problems. Never. Okay, we're getting ready to allow her to read the chapter again. Um,
Did you want to give it a few seconds?
yeah. So let's just talk and then I'll have you start reading again when they start joining. Because I'm
Okay.
watching. So what um what resources does your organization offer, and how can someone contact you if they know someone who is, you're in Contra Costa County, Northern California, if they know someone who is in a domestic violence relationship and they want out, or they've already got out the relationship and they need resources?
Um, the resources that we provide, um, kind of like to take you through the steps. If you were to call me and say that you had a lady and her children and they were fleeing their abuser, um, and they need, like emergency shelter, what we do is we put them in a hotel. We also connect
Okay.
them with the different advocates that are within the Contra Costa Richmond area. So the advocate is the one that kind of takes them to that next step. And so we get them so they can be able to get shelter. I give them numbers to different shelters because we can't call to get them a bed, but I can
Mhm.
call the shelter and see if there's any availability, and they can in turn tell me yes there is something, or no we won't have nothing for another 2 days, but the woman still has to be the caller. So we
Okay.
give them the numbers, all of the resources for shelters and the advocates. Some of them help, some of the advocates help with attorneys in order to get like restraining orders, um, different protection orders while they're in our care. Say we put a woman in a hotel for 1 to 3 days. While she's in our care, we make sure that they eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If they left with the clothes on their back, we have a clothing closet. But if they can't fit any of those, we go to Target or Walmart and get panties and socks and, maybe some sweats,
Mhm.
um, different things that they may need. Um, and I believe what the food, the clothing, and the resources. So when they're in our care, that's what they receive.
Okay. And during the COVID-19, um, what are some services that you have provided, and how many families have you guys helped?
For COVID, yay! So far, we've helped a total of 75 families.
Wow.
And what we do is the two criterias are we need to find out where they live to make sure that we service their area.
Okay.
And if they receive food stamps, then they don't qualify because it's for people that are having a hard time making ends meet. And House of Loving Hands wants to make sure that that stress of being able to feed their family is not on them. So we actually do an intake. We do a grocery list as if they were grocery shopping.
Hmm.
And then we schedule them a date that their groceries are going to be on their doorsteps.
Okay.
We were blessed with a small grant to be able to do that because I kept feeling like I need to be doing more. With the COVID, it's hard with the domestic violence part because a lot of the shelters are closed and not allowing them um, to register because they don't know
Mhm.
if the women have been affected by COVID. They don't have any history, medical history behind it. So the shelters are closed. So the
Mhm.
women have two choices. They stay with their abuser, or if family members are available, they can stay with them. Other than that, their choices is to stay or to be homeless. And with a lot of the organizations that I have partnered with, um, they're not even accepting new clients. One of the organizations was giving out tents and telling families where they can go set up their tent by close resources to be able to shower and use the bathroom.
Wow. Um, wow. Because to have to stay with your abuser because the shelters are closed. Um, and I know when COVID-19 started, they were saying that the number of domestic cases had actually increased. Are they still increasing? Or are we starting to see them decline?
No, they're still increasing. I did research. I know in Chicago, I think in the beginning of March, it was like 386. I want to say it was about 386, and now in 1 week it was
Mhm.
386, and it went up to like 590 something. The
Wow.
domestic violence has spiked about 30%, and the national domestic hotline calls have doubled nationwide. It went from like 166,000 to almost 400,000.
Wow. That's a lot. Um,
Yes,
that's a lot.
and that's it. The 30% is in California.
And I have even heard, and I don't have the actual numbers, and I haven't fact checked it for myself, but I've also heard that the number of divorces have went up as a result of people being home more. That people
Hmm.
are asking for a divorce and are leaving their spouses. So as we come to an end, I'm going to have you read the paragraph of your book for the people
Okay.
that are on and for the people that will be listening to the replay. And so
Okay.
again, this is going to be, I want you guys to visualize it. I want you to be as if you're there with her. So kind of close your eyes and just listen as she reads from her book.
Okay. Two, before we start that one, to address the divorce,
Mhm.
um, the divorce rate has risen. The only sad thing about it is that because of COVID,
Yes.
the courts are closed. So when they got the power and the courage to do it, a lot of the divorce cases are on hold due to the fact of the courts being closed.
So there's a
So that's
possibility
a
that
whole
they may
nother
return.
story. Yes.
Wow. Wow. And then again, even as we stated before, you said that a lot of people had, you know, were leaving to go to the shelters, but because of COVID-19, the shelters are closed, which means that you now have to live in a tent or find another family member. So a lot of people who have finally got the courage to leave this relationship may have returned because they felt like they had no place to go.
Right. Right.
Wow. That's heavy. Um, that's yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
If people have questions, need more information, resources, how can they contact you to have a personal conversation offline, where they can
Hmm.
open up, share their hearts, and then find out what is available for them?
Okay. I have a 24-hour crisis hotline, literally 24 hours, 7 days a week. Um, and the number is 510-730-1162. And that is the House of Loving Hands Crisis Hotline. Um, we also have a website, houseoflovinghands.org, and you can actually contact us that way too with your information, and it will ding my email that I know that you need some type of assistance. And I check my emails all day throughout the day just to make sure that I'm not getting anything from the website part versus people calling me.
Okay. And again, domestic violence is not always physical. There are
Mhm.
different forms. Um, Nisi, can you name a couple of the different forms of abuse so that they know
Mm.
what it is?
It's so many. There's actually hundreds of different types of abuse. But the main ones that we look at are the top seven, and that's physical abuse, emotional abuse,
Okay.
verbal abuse, economic abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, and spiritual abuse. Those are the top seven that a lot of people hear and deal with, um, all the time when they're talking about abuse. But, we have elder abuse, we have pet abuse, the word abuse just goes on and on. But the top ones that domestic violence victims deal with are these top seven. Um, Also, another one that people don't really talk about, and it's still domestic violence. It's still physical, verbal, mental. We don't talk about the deaf, DEAF,
Mm.
community, and a lot of times their abuse is um, a little bit higher than those of the hearing world. And that's because that's where they feel safe. They don't feel comfortable in the hearing world. So a lot of times they tend to stay with their abuser because it's a form of comfort and belonging.
Mm.
So a lot of times because they don't feel heard in the hearing world, they will stay in the deaf world, the community, because that's where they are comforted.
Okay.
So their
Wow.
abuse tends to be a little higher and not reported.
Wow. And I wonder if it's like that with like someone who's blind or someone who has limited
A disability.
mhm. I mean, because it's,
Yes,
and you have to wonder then, is it the same for people who may not be from here and have come here and don't have a lot of family, friends, and resources? And so they become comfortable, or they feel like they don't have a place to go because they don't speak English, or they're not here legally. And so, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you start looking at
and
deeper of, what would keep somebody in that type of relationship. And it's also been said that
exactly,
people typically leave up to 7 times before they finally leave for good.
and
um
that's correct. That's correct. They it takes a minimum of 7 times leaving before they do leave for good. And then, like you stated, when they're from different countries and there are language barriers, there's cultural abuse,
okay.
because some women stay in physical abused relationships because if they leave, then they will be ousted from the family. So then they have nowhere to go to. So they will really have to have like a strong support system to get them out of the situation and then also on their feet because they're not going to have the support of the family. So it goes deeper and deeper, and there's so many different branches that reach out to different other situations when it's regarding abuse.
Why do you think it takes up to 7 times? And I'm not asking the question from a judgmental place. I'm asking the question like, is it because they don't have resources, they have limited income, they haven't prepared or thought it through, they're forced to return? And the reason why I'm asking the question is I want people who are listening and listen to the replay, I want them to understand in the event they're supporting someone who has left maybe 2 or 3 times and they're saying, I'm done with it, you keep going back, I'm not, don't call me no more. I want them to understand from the place of someone who has been in an abusive relationship and who has a organization, nonprofit, why it's up to 7 times.
Um, from my experience, is it was up to 7 times because you care about that person, number
Mm-hmm.
one, and then two, you're always going through what they call the vicious cycle. So you're
Okay.
always thinking that when they say they're sorry, you want them to really be sorry. You
Mm-hmm.
want them to really change when they say they're going to change. So, they're sorry. So there's the situation, and then it's tension that builds up. Then there's this explosion, and then they're sorry, and then that's what's called the honeymoon. And then the vicious cycle just starts all over again. So if they're genuinely not wanting to change and just trying to get you back, then that cycle is going to change. And so we as women, when we break that cycle, it's like we're not going to deal with this anymore. So we go back and forth, because now you're dealing with emotions. Now you're dealing um with your heart, you're dealing with your mind. If there's kids involved, then you're thinking about the kids. Oh, I don't want the kids to grow up without their father. So
Mm-hmm.
it really is a lot that's weighed on a woman to make a decision whether to stay or to leave.
That's good. And when you talk about the cycle, because you're right, these people, I mean, they're in love, they are married, they have families, right? And so it's not like it's 24/7 abusive. It's the highs
Right,
and the lows. And then you are in love. And so it's still the hope of maybe they will change. Maybe this is the last time. Maybe,
right,
he won't do it again, right? And then being able
right,
to say, when you're like this, you're perfect, and
right,
I love you, I love this part of you. But then the reality is, at any given moment you can go from 0 to 100, and then
right,
you can become someone I fear. And I think it's important that we realize that it's not always bad. There's moments, um,
right,
and that there's still a part of you that loves them, that enjoys them when they're nice, or they're communicating, or the good times that you do have. And so I think that's very important, because so that they understand why it's so difficult to leave. And that's even with friendships. Like, we've had friendships that are not healthy, and it's taken us a while to let them go, because we've had good times and we've had memories. And so I kind of threw that out there so that we can begin to understand and see the bigger picture. And so I'm going to
Yes.
have you read from your book. Um, and I've heard it. So yeah, yeah, yeah. I visualize myself being there. Yeah, that paragraph
Mhm.
is heavy. Um, I mean, but you see, you can. I was there with you when you read it. Like, I felt it, because of the words you used and how you said it. So, for people that are on and people that are listening to the replay, close your eyes, begin to visualize, as she reads an insert from her book. Okay.
It happened to me. Here I am on my knees in the bushes in a park right around the corner from my house where homeless men and women sleep. It's cold. I'm cold, cowered down on the wet dirt where ants, worms, and just too many bugs underneath me. The thorns from the bushes are sticking me and poking me in my face, arms, legs, my God, all over. Because I left so quickly, all I had time to do was throw on some sweats. I didn't have a bra. I didn't have home bra, panties, or socks. Peeking through the bushes, I washed as my car drove back and forth. My heart was in my throat. It was beating so loud I couldn't hear my own thoughts. And my stomach was so sick with fear that I vomited right where I was kneeling. But I couldn't move. I was sweating, praying, and holding my breath so that my hiding place wouldn't be blown. The whole time I'm hiding in the bushes, all I'm thinking about is how did I end up in this crazy, mixed up position? Like, nah, seriously. How did I end up on all fours like an afraid, wounded, beaten down dog? Okay, let me start from the beginning. And that's the first part of the book.
Did she just say, let me start from the beginning and cut off you guys? Did she just? I mean, so for anybody who has ever had to escape a house because it was on fire, or ever have to leave because your life was in danger, and not to be able to grab anything, she said, was sweats, no shoes. Um, and then when she said, I was cold, but yet I'm sweating and I'm throwing up, but I can't move. And then she says, how did I get in this position? Um, and when she said position, not only the position that she was in on all fours, but this position to where she even had to run. And so, no matter what position you are physically, mentally, emotionally, and you're asking yourself, how did I get here? The most important question is, how do I get from here? Get to the place
Right.
where I feel safe, get to the place where I feel heard and respected. That is the most important question. And so, if you or anyone you know is going through a domestic violence relationship and you want resources, information, help, and assistance, I'm going to have Nisi give her contact information again. Please reach out to her. Let her support you in the process. And Nisi, if you can also let us know when and how we can get your book.
um, I'm still working on my book. Um, so I'm looking to continue to work on it and get it out. My information, if you need assistance, I am available seriously 24/7 at 510-730-1162, 510-730-1162, or you can go on the website House of Loving Hands with an S.org, and you can contact me or any of the board members or volunteers through the website.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This video is two-part. So if you came in on this part, there's another part where we are actually answering questions and we're going a lot deeper. Thank you for taking the opportunity to listen to us, post your questions, and support Nisi as she tells her story. Again, my name is Latanya Thompson. I'm the Purpose Authority Coach. You can reach me at www.latanya, LATANYUA, Thompson, THOMPSON.com. And I'm also giving our complimentary strategy session under book. You can click for a 30-minute strategy session. Thank you and have a blessed evening. Bye bye.